All right, welcome back to the Ottawa studios of Inside My Canoe Head. I am your host, Dr. D. Today, we are talking about preparedness beyond disasters, the usefulness of preparedness for a whole of life, not just power outages and evacuations. So sit back, grab yourself your favorite beverage. This is going to rock your world. Let's go. All right, let's go. Today is Friday, the 26th of April, 2024. Thank you for joining us here at Inside My Canoe Head. Today, we want to talk about moving the discussion about preparedness beyond what we traditionally think about natural disasters, evacuations, that type of thing. Exceptionally important as a grounding and a foundation. But while focusing on disasters is a good beginning, preparedness is far more than readying for power outages and evacuations. When we think about the concepts of strategic thinking and the concept that we argue here for Inside My Canoe Head on designing your life, those schemas are synonymous with preparedness. There's a great blog that I highlighted on a LinkedIn post this morning from 2016 that talks about the idea that preparedness is a function of the community. I've always said that we talk about individual preparedness here at Inside My Canoe Head, but one of your most important things that you have is your social capital, which is the strength of the networks and relationships that you have built with other humans within your community. And that preparedness is a function of that community. It cannot be imposed or provided for, but it must be fostered and encourage. And again, I would also highlight that anybody who's really interested in reading a lot of the latest material on preparedness and, as we spoke before, the related concept of resilience, FEMA in the United States has released their draft National Resilience Guidance. It's actually one of the best written publications on resilience that I've ever read. It literally has all of the components that are necessary. It has some pretty grand strategies and ideas. I may not totally agree with their concept of how to employ it, how to build teams, etc., along that way within communities, but I think the Resilience Guide is probably the best succinct piece of written prose about resilience that I have seen in over a decade of looking at this subject matter. So go into Google, look for the draft National Resilience Guidance from FEMA, read it, and you can take away from that the idea that resilience is about all of community and preparedness is linked to that and is no different. So if we look at preparedness through the traditional lens of emergencies and disasters, which we refer to as the realization of natural hazards. So if you live in an earthquake zone, flood, hurricane, tornado, and something like that happens, that's the realization of a natural hazard. We really consider far less than 20% of exogenous shocks that could occur and impact you and how you do your life. Preparedness is not simply a whole of community idea, but it is a whole of life perspective. We always say it's not a stockpile, it's a lifestyle, but that's grounded in the idea that if you simply stop preparedness at the point where you're getting ready for a disaster with a bug out bag, you've got about 20% down the line. It's like it's first and goal from the 10, and I just ran a 2-yard rush, and I'm celebrating like it's a touchdown because I think I'm done when I'm really only 20% to the end line. Preparedness encompasses far more. It facilitates the navigation of exogenous shocks, when now whether they come from the disasters we just spoke of, but also economic strife, political struggles, armed conflict, familial challenges, corporate sustainability, and a host of others that we have over on our website at preparednesslabs.ca. Drop over, say hi to everybody there. The point here is that when you start preparedness at 20%, now there is work to get there. We've done a lot of great publication on this podcast, well over 250 episodes on individual and preparedness and things that you need to take forward. We look at first accepting personal responsibility, and that's the grounding in any type of beginning change or idea that you think needs to happen in your life, in your community, and whatever it may be, is accepting personal responsibility. Because whether you listen to Mel Robbins, Tony Robbins, Simon Sinek, David Goggins, Joe Rogan, Jocko Willink, Ryan Holiday, no matter who the motivational speaker is that you pay attention to, each one of them begins from the premise of personal responsibility. It means that nobody's coming to help. Sitting on your couch and waiting for somebody to show up to fix the day, to right a wrong, to set you up for success, to make the hard decisions for you, means you're playing a victim and it's not going to happen, which means you're going to go through a litany of rationale in your head as to why you were unsuccessful, things that impacted you from exterior sources that prevented you from being successful, instead of accepting personal responsibility for your outcomes. And I say this in my book that's available on Amazon, Preparedness, Simplified Book 1, The Beginning. It's a starting point of our online primary offering at preparednesslabs.ca, which is our video course called Adopting a Prepared Life. It's that the first thing you have to do, and it costs nothing, but it is literally the most profound step in preparedness, is accepting personal responsibility. That doesn't mean that you're going to win the day every day. It just means that you understand whether I succeed or fail, it will be my fault. And that is exactly what I'm looking for. So that's the first thing. The next thing we go through is a whole series of steps that we recommend you take. We've got many different episodes, podcast episodes about it, but it really summates itself in what we refer to as the trifecta of preparedness plans. So that means if you think about all of the risks that you're facing in your life, myriad of risks from a myriad of variables, known and unknown, confounding, etc., variables that exist out there, you could end up having 40 different plans, right? And that's illogical. It consumes too much time, too much effort. It seems overwhelming, and the vast majority of population are simply going to avoid or dismiss that as a requirement. So we've come up with a strategy. If you think of everything that could possibly ever happen to you along a spectrum, on one end of the spectrum, you have your most likely but least impactful. And in the other end, you have your most impactful or most dangerous but least likely. And it's a spectrum. Now, if we sit down and come up with an idea and a strategy how to address what happens at either ends of the spectrum, then by default, you're going to be ready to navigate what's in the middle. So we always start with that. Have your trifecta of preparedness lands for your most likely and your most dangerous. The other one that we introduce in the beginning of our education scheme is economic loss. And we call this the open door plan. And that means that this is the one that starts your thinking and starts you to realize that preparedness has something but very little in the grand scheme to do with natural disasters, emergencies, and traditional stuff. This opens the door to preparedness being about your whole of life and a lifestyle. We talk about the need for having a plan for when you get fired, when you lose your job, whatever your family's primary source of income is, and it disappears tomorrow, right? Because we all know every one of us are going to stop doing the job we're doing right now. You're either going to retire or die, you're going to quit, or you're going to be fired. So you're going to stop doing the job you're doing right now at some point in your life. Now, I really hope for you that occurs at a time and a place of your choosing. Logically, though, it's not going to. It may not. You may get fired. You may walk in and be met by HR in the basement of a building tomorrow on your way into work on Saturday or on Monday morning when you're ready to rock an incredible week and you get met by HR and security and you're fired. However that goes, that is exceptionally impactful. And I have argued in my book and many podcasts that losing your job on a moment's notice is just as impactful as your house burning down to a family and its ability to navigate. So if we think of that all of that gets you to the 20% mark, right? That just gets you to dealing with a fifth of the events that are likely to impact you. We call this the events that are going to impact your physical world. The economic one transcends that into the psychological world, and we begin with that when we're looking at the 80%. We know the open door, you've talked about it, but it also then leads into the discussion, preparedness, of how we choose to live. And we talk about this in the book and other things. When we talk about you are in control with personal responsibility, right? So you have a responsibility to maintain positive mental health, physical health, and financial health, right? That's your responsibility. It's nobody's job to make you fit and eat properly and sleep well, and it's nobody else's job to make sure that you maintain a positive mental health with lower, but not zero, levels of stress and anxiety, and you build positive emotional intelligence. That is your responsibility. Now, on the financial side, you may not have the wage you want. You may not have the job you want. You may not be at the income level that you desire to be to, but it is your responsibility to live below your means. And I'm not within your means, below your means. Here we advocate for an 80% rule, which simply means that 80% of your disposable income is available for you to spend. That's it. The other 20% is invested for a whole bunch of series. We talk about it in a couple of previous podcast episodes about how to manage that. The point being is it's the old rule of money, right? There's only one real rule with money. If you spend less than you earn, you will never need savings. Just think about that for a minute. If you spend less than you earn, you will never need savings because you will always run out of month before you run out of money. And I use that phrase in the book and many podcasts. Is that's the first rule. And the easiest way to get there is, right now I have a fixed income. It's very simple. It is what it is. Now I can always work more, get whatever. But right now I have so much money coming in per month. My expenses must be less than that. Ideally, no more than 80% of that. I just cut expenses until they're there. That's a different topic. But the idea being is an economic shock to you and your family and those for whom you're responsible is just as impactful as a natural disaster. Preparedness has to move and should move into your financial sphere. Preparedness makes you ready to navigate and deal with those ideas. And now let's move beyond economic into the political sphere, right? We all see that the world is facing a major election in the United States of America because America is an accidental superpower, to use the name of the book by Peter Zion, and everybody should read that thing. It's incredible. America's the accidental superpower. They're so influential around the world due to their GDP and the size of their military and their economic might. You look at that and say, okay, that election is important, right? The problem is political ideological importance in your life is influential for your additional mental health stressors. If you wrap yourself around an axle about a political party and a political ideology, and you spend hours pounding the keyboard on your phone or on Twitter or on some other social media platform and posting tons of videos and commenting on 100 things a day about how one character or another is an idiot and deserves to never earn the title of president or whatever it may be in your own political sphere, you are intentionally adding additional mental health stressors to your life. Because in a democracy, and again, if you live in a democracy, the rule is simple. You get a say. You do not get the final say. If you choose to live in the United States of America, you have to live by the rule that I get a say, but not the final say. So if the election is free and fair, you must accept the result. It doesn't matter. I'll give you an example. Here in Canada, our current federal government is not of a political ideology that I support. I think I've been pretty clear about that, but it is my government, and they have the legal right to be executing the decisions they are right now. I may not agree with them, but because I exercised my right to vote, and I voted, and my vote was counted, I have to accept the results of the election. This is my duly elected and empowered government. Yes, I think they're doing really stupid things, but I do not wrap my head around that axle. The issue is not as who's in government. It is the rules and taxes they impose on you. Because remember, any government at any level only has two levers, right? They have a regulatory lever and a taxation lever. So they can impose rules on you and how you conduct your life, and they can impose taxes and withdraw money from your income, okay? Those are the only two things the government can. What you need to do is not wrap yourself around the axle about who's in power, but look at the regulatory framework and the taxation framework that they are imposing or intend to impose on you and how you conduct your life. And then your responsibility, and this is Political Preparedness 101, is to learn to navigate that disruption and how to thrive within the context of the rules. Now, you can argue against a change in a taxation or a regulatory framework. Fine, have at her. I wouldn't recommend it because it's just a multiple stressor on your head. Your responsibility in preparedness in the political sphere is to understand that this rule will be imposed, and then to understand how you can best navigate that rule and how you can set you and your family up for success within that rule. It's a frame. The rule's coming, dude. You didn't agree with it. I get it. Fair enough. But here it is, and you can't ignore it, and you can't try to fight it by not following it because you disagree with it. You have to figure out how to navigate within it. And these are where successful political operatives work. People will take that and they'll say, okay, I vote Republican, the Democrats won in my state, or I vote conservative and the Liberals won in my province. And now I have a government that is not of the political stripe. They're going to impose these laws. How do I navigate and construct the way I do my life to have the least amount of impact from that new regulation and potentially exploit that new regulation for my favor? That's preparedness. And then if we extend it now to armed conflict, right? And this is about your real estate phrase, location, location, location. If you're choosing to raise a family in a location that is susceptible to armed open conflict, you are accepting a massive additional risk for an ideological perspective that you are imposing on other members of the family if you are in a leadership position. Now, you can choose to do that, but just understand what you're doing, and that as long as you live in a free and democratic society, preparedness planning tells us you have the right and the ability to move to a more peaceful location, one that is far less stress, far less warring parties and issues. So when I'm talking armed conflict, I'm not necessarily talking about the fact that you live in central Ukraine or that you live in Jerusalem or that you live just outside of the West Bank or that you live somewhere. I'm talking about if you live in New York. I'm talking about if you live in downtown Toronto. I'm talking if you live in Chicago, shooting capital of I think the world. If you're choosing to live in an area that has a higher degree of armed violence or just violence in general that you and your family is exposed to, you again are making the logical, I would argue illogical, but you're making the informed decision that you are choosing to leave your family in an area that has a high level of violence, right? You have the ability to move. It's not escaping. It's not running away. It's making an intelligent decision that I don't need to live in an area where people are shooting each other up. I have the ability to live in a place where there's far less shooting, far less violence, and it's the ability to navigate conflict when presented. And this is another part of preparedness is it is the skill to de-escalate issues, right? We see a lot of bravado and a lot of talking about different things, but the real skill in preparedness one of them is de-escalation. Your ability to, in any situation, be it at home, be at work, be it out in society, to de-escalate conflict, to be able to dial people down, to dial people back, right? There are certain groups of people, and you've met them online, right? Keyboard warriors, keyboard Karens and Keiths, right? The point is that some people have an inalienable requirement to be right. They just want confirmation. They want people to agree with them. They want people to reinforce their beliefs by telling them they're right, and they'll just pound away. So sometimes I've told people, yeah, you're right, right on. No, they're not. But I mean, it de-escalates it. It quiets them down. It gives them joy and happiness because they think they've succeeded in persuading somebody that their point of view is correct, when in fact all I've done is just shut them up, right? I've shut them up by telling them they're correct and right, and I've de-escalated the situation. I've brought any mental health stress that I had down. I'm using emotional intelligence for my benefit, and that's preparedness, right? It's getting ready to do that. It's also avoiding dangerous situations, right? You want to lessen the mental health burden that sits upon you about always being jacked and ready, backed. You know, I never sit with the back to the door. I know where all the exits are. Listen, I'm an Army veteran that had enough experience with bad guys and bullets flying that those things come natural to me. But the point is that you want to avoid dangerous situations, whatever. But I'll give you this, and this is part of preparedness. This is the part people don't like talking about, is that you want to avoid fighting while being capable of absolutely, unquestionably destroying the opposition. It is the idea of being a warrior in the garden. So it's the idea of building positive physical health that we talked about, one of those three responsibilities that you have: positive physical, positive mental health, and positive financial. We said financial. The emotional intelligence is part of it, is being able to de-escalate and being okay on the inside when you agree with somebody you don't agree, so they'll shut up. That's emotional intelligence, right? They think they persuaded you and you're just doing it so that they stop talking and then they stop keyboard warrior fighting. And the other one is physical preparedness, right? Because we know that when bad days happen, when the pear shape goes, when the world goes crazy and the shizzy hits the fizzy, the physical fitness you have, your ability to fight, your ability to walk and do heavy physical exercises for an extended period of time on reduced nutrition to little or no sleep, is largely going to be conducive to your success, right? So your physical health matters. You build robust skill sets. I always argue, even do this in my book, but I don't care how you do it. Every human being needs to know how to physically defend themselves in a fight. Full stop. Now, I've taken Taekwondo and karate. Some people like MMA, jiu-jitsu. Some people just like to be in great physical shape so they can run, which I think is the greatest strategy ever. Listen, if you challenge me to fight on the street, I'll run away, right? You'll think you won. You're laughing. That's great. Have a great day. Think you beat me. I don't want conflict, right? I don't want fight. I de-escalate every time. I tell people they're right all the time so they'll stop talking. Why do I do that? Because I don't need the mental health stress. I know on the inside that should an individual put me in a situation where I have no other option other than to conduct physical violence, that I have an exceptional level of capability and skill set in that area, and that I will create an opening for which I can run through. That gives you wonderful calm, peace, and stability. And that's just conflict, right? So you try to avoid it, de-escalate it, and then in the very end, if you have to fight, know how to fight. Familial challenges. Wow. If we've seen the breakdown of the nuclear family, I don't think there's a single other thing more destructive to our modern Western society than the breakdown of the nuclear family. Discussions aside, every family has struggles within your errant family and your extended family. And I'm going to tell you this, and you may not agree with me. Remember, family is the ones you choose, not the ones you're born into, right? So I was born into a family, mother, father, brother, sister, love them all. They're great people. God rest them who aren't here anymore. They're my family, right? Okay. My family that I expend exceptional effort on protecting and exceptional effort on supporting and defending at all costs against everybody else are the ones I choose. That's my spouse and my 2 kids. Full stop. and any dog that we've had along the way, God rest the 3 of them that we've had. That's my family, right? I choose my family. I don't get born into one. You may not agree with my interpretation of that, but I have a very small core group of people that I will fight like a warrior to defend on all planes and all existence. But how do you figure the mental health strategy struggles that exist in a family? We all have them, right? And we talk about this in the book, and I know I keep referencing the book, but there it is. Toxic humans. We all have them in our family. Those people who, on balance and on probability, bring more drama than they do joy, right? You have every right, and I would argue responsibility, to fire them from your family. Now, this is not a Walmart firing. You're not looking to have a big open outing in front of everybody else so you have this big, massive event. But this is about you understanding that it is a joy and a pleasure to be a part of your life. I tell my sons all this all the time. When they were both just starting in the dating world, I said, remember, it is a privilege to be in a relationship with you. And anybody who violates that privilege, ditch them, right? There are something like, I have 2 sons, so there's something like 2.5 billion childbearing age women on this world. It is a privilege to be in a relationship with you. Feel free to ditch people who don't respect that privilege. Toxic humans exist in your family. Let them go. And how do you let somebody go who's a toxic human? You just stop talking to them. You stop texting them. You wait 24 to 48 hours to answer the texts that they send you. Emails take about a week to answer. You nicely decline any invitations for events, etc. And you basically just dismiss them out of your life, because you need to remove people in your life that on balance bring you more drama than joy. Now, you can't get rid of all drama, because you might be alone if you try that. You might not even you might even like the person in the mirror. But the point is that you have a responsibility to identify those individuals through your preparedness planning, right? Because this is about your mental health. Remember, I spoke about your responsibility to maintain positive mental health. One of those is to only include people in your life that bring you joy and happiness on balance. Those that bring you drama on balance, they're simply gone. They may be your brother or sister, and you just have to say, you know what? I'm just not doing this anymore. In your head, of course. And you say, you're done. I wish you the best of luck. I'll probably attend your funeral, and I might even shed some tears. But between now and then, I wish you the best of luck. And off they go. Limiting your commitments is another huge one in preparedness planning. Understanding and protecting the white space in your calendar, those open slots that have absolutely no ideas in them. If you're going to commit to something that you're absolutely passionate about, something that you are, as Greg McEwen puts it in his book, Essentialism, everything should be 90% of your ask should be no, and 10% should be yes, and it should be an absolute, unquestionable hell yes. Yes, if anything, it falls short of you leaping out of your chair and going, wow, what an opportunity. I can't wait to do that. You shouldn't commit. You should protect that white space for that very core group of people, that family that you've chosen to create, protect, and foster an incredible existence with them, right? So protect that. And remember, again, the family is the ones you choose, not the ones you're born into. Protect that white space, fire toxic people, and limit your commitments. Those are all ways of managing familial struggle and challenges. And that, my friends, is part of preparedness. And the last one we're going to wrap up today on is corporate sustainability. And it's not just about good governance, right? It's not just about your social license to operate or your ESG in some terminology. But the point here is that you want to minimize the impact and highlight the benefit of your corporate enterprise, whether you're a shareholder, owner, or an employee. So if you're like me and you're 100% shareholder in an independent corporation, then obviously it's very important to keep a positive public-facing output of your company, right? But if you're an employee, if you're a salaried worker and you're working for a company, it is very important that you defend the reputation of that company. Now, when I mean defend, I don't mean run around and be a keyboard warrior and fight everybody on it. I mean working very diligently in your position, irrespective of whatever it is, to ensure that the company does the right thing, that the company looks good, right? And that the company is providing a positive service in community, because corporations are people under the law. They're residents under the law in the community, and they are legally responsible for what they do, just like you and I are, right? So if you work for Bob's Garage as a Class A mechanic, then you want to make sure Bob's Garage gives great service, and that Bob's Garage is moving towards being the number one garage in town, and that you are probably the friendliest, nicest, most polite and patient mechanic that this town has ever seen. Because that making Bob's Garage successful makes you successful. You want it to be positive. And this last point about corporate sustainability in your preparedness world is linked to your mental health. I keep coming back to that because the importance of mental health is you. Be neutral and quiet online. It's really hard to do, my friends, but be neutral, quiet is much preferred. You say nothing. You consider the Stoic idea of speaking to what you control, and you control your actions and decisions, and be silent on the others. It's the idea of not having an opinion. And I told my sons these when they were growing up. I said, there's a huge difference between I don't have an opinion on that idea versus no comment. No comment is I have an opinion, my friends, but I most certainly don't think this is an appropriate time to share it with you or to share it with anybody else. So when somebody says no comment, it means they have something to say, but they understand that the environment is not conducive to a positive outcome should they say whatever they're thinking. That's no comment. Not having opinion means I simply don't have an opinion. It is an issue, idea, event, ideology, whatever it may be, that I just have no interest in. I have never spent time researching it. I know nothing about it. I just don't have an opinion. Move on. It is perfectly fine not to have an opinion on something. You are not required by law or by cultural requirement to develop, create, research, and publish vociferously online an opinion about things, but people do. The keyboard warriors are out there. So I would suggest to you, if you are an employee or a business owner, to just shut up online. And the reason for that is that, number one, it downloads your mental health. It brings down your mental health. People don't challenge you. They're not yelling and screaming at you, and you're not in Twitter fights all day long and Facebook fights. The other thing is if you say something dumb online, say something threatening to somebody else, that's your business. They can literally take your profile, go back to your business, and conduct a significant attack. For example, it has had many times, and people who, depending on whatever side you fall on the Israel-Hamas war, okay? People have gone out and staked a ground on that. They've paid a huge price. They've paid a massive price, because if there's one thing keyboard warriors are good at, it's an attempt to cancel and an attempt to totally destroy the reputation of a business. Somebody has a restaurant, they put out a Palestinian flag out front or a Jewish flag out front, and the next thing you know, their entire reviews are in the tank. Their business model is now being destroyed. They're being protested. And life would have been just better if they carried on having a great restaurant and doing normal things that restaurant owners do. So my suggestion for you for preparedness is develop a preparedness plan that includes your corporate sustainability, because this is linked back to the first one I talked about economic viability, right? You need to do what you can to ensure your ability continues to earn an income. If you're a mechanic at Bob's Garage and you're slamming the rates and the way work gets done at Bob's Garage, or mechanics in general, or cars in general, and you're slamming this away online, how are you going to be seen as somebody trustworthy, valuable, and independent to conduct business for me? You won't. So hopefully today's discussion about preparedness being at the 20% when you only consider disasters and events, and then the discussion we had about economic, political, armed conflict, familial challenges, and corporate sustainability being parts of, but not the exhaustive list of things that are involved when you adopt a prepared life and you move into moving preparedness beyond that 2-yard rush that you just thought was a touchdown. So thank you very much for joining us this week at Inside My Canoe Head. Drop over to our website, insidemycanoehead.ca. There is a button there to support the podcast should you choose. Feel free to tell all of your friends and whoever you can about this podcast. And drop over to our website at www.preparednesslabs.ca, our parent company. And there's a lot of great stuff for you there. Free newsletters, free downloads, and a bunch of other interesting opportunities. Thanks again. Take care and stay safe.